The chosen architecture for this system is the MVC, or also known as the Model View Controller. As its name suggests, each part is responsible and will manage a different part of the system. And in other words, it is implementing a divide and conquer style of implementation. So let us look at the different parts of the architecture. First, model, which handles data and business logic. The view manages and renders the user interface, while the controller processes user inputs and coordinates actions between model and view. As such, using the MVC architecture will ensure clean code organization, making development and debugging processes easier. Besides that, each part of the system can be reused and reskilled in conjunction with incremental delivery, which is often the case in agile development.
This is the overall package diagram for the system. There are three subsystems. In counseling module, the component include counseling appointment, interaction with students, and update patient notes. In mental health subsystem, include chat with chatbot. And in the quiz subsystem, the component is completing the quiz. And lastly, in administration module, the component is user access and view analytic report and also content publishing. The interaction between these components is that first, the counseling appointment and interaction with student will interact with user access to check the student access toward this function. Beside the interaction with student update patient notes and check with chatbot component will send the analytic to view analytic report component. So this is to provide data for the component to do analysis report. The content publishing will also provide content for chatbots to answer the question from students. Last but not least, the quiz module will access content publishing to make questions and send the quiz performance and analysis to the view analytic report component. This is the overall package diagram for the system. The four module is mental health support module, administration modules, counseling module, and quiz modules. The administration module will access to all other modules, and those modules will also import data into the administration module. Besides, the quiz module will also access to mental health support module and import the quiz in performance to the mental health support module. So these are package diagram for each subsystem.
Now, let us take a look at the class diagram for the quiz subsystem. A difference to the previous class diagram in the analysis stage is that a controller class is introduced in this design phase. Most of the classes were kept identical to the analysis phase, except that quiz controller, question controller, and attempt controller were added. So the quiz controller will actually link the student class to the quiz by initiating the quiz. Next, the question controller will link the quiz class to the question class, where we will show the question for each quizzes. Then the attempt controller will link the attempt class to the score calculator and controls the logic behind the attempt and the scoring system.
The class diagram for the counseling subsystem, there are three controllers added, and the controller will link the specific class to each other. The appointment controller will link the student class to the appointment class, while the message controller will link the appointment class to the message class. And lastly, the session note controller will link the counselor class to the chat session class.
Next is the class diagram for the administration subsystem. First, there are three controllers, which are user access controller, content publishing controller, and analytic controller. And the user access controller links the administrator to the user access class, and the content publishing controller link the admin to the content class, and the analytic controller link the admin to the analytic report class. The attribute and behavior are written in each classes.
So this is the class diagram for mental health support subsystem. So the user here is student. The attribute of student is user ID, name, and score. The student will try to chat to enter this subsystem. The controller of this subsystem is chat controller, where it is the interface and it acts to get message. The view layer here is the chatbot. where it will generate response and analyze the sentiment. The model is message, where the attribute of message is message ID, content, and timestamp. Last but not least, also chat session.
Now let us look at the sequence diagram for the quiz subsystem. The specific use case for this subsystem is attempting quizzes. Similar to the class diagram just now, more classes, in particular controller classes and view classes, are introduced. Specifically, the attempt page is the view and the attempt controller is the controller. So let us start from the beginning. The student will initiate the video player and it will send a complete signal once the video is finished. Then the student has a choice to attempt the quiz. If attempt is true, it will go to the attempt page, which will link to the attempt controller initiating a quiz using the behavior of show. Then the quiz class will get question from the question class, which will then initiate the score calculator and calculate the score to be stored in the dashboard. Alternatively, if the attempt is false, the dashboard will send a message like try again next time to the user, which is the student. So that concludes the sequence diagram for the mental health support subsystem.
So this is SD002 for counseling session appointment. The view layer is appointment page for the students. The display controller function to display different output based on the input sent by the time slot controller. So the time slot controller functions to check is the time slot available. And then the data access time slot act as the database providing the working time slot. And the alternative flow is when the time slot controller shows an available time slot. So SD003, interaction with students. The view layer is checkbox. The controller is the message controller, function as the filter of the message from sensitive words and also translating the message into different language.
I will discuss the sequence diagram for the use case update patient notes. So since we are using the MVC architecture pattern for the system, there are new elements added, which are the view, controller, model, and data access. The user, which is the counselor, will go through step by step to get the notes. Once he gets the notes, he can enter the updates. So the alternative flow, if the note is updated, the system will confirm the updates and show confirmation to the counselor. Otherwise, the system will return with the no message and show no updates detected.
Next, for the administration subsystem, the first sequence diagram is managing user access. First, the administrator will enter the user access view and search for the user ID. Then the controller will retrieve the user access status from the database and display it to the administrator. The administrator then can update the permission and will be saved to the database. The next sequence diagram is publishing content. First, the administrator will enter the content publishing view by pressing the edit button. And after the administrator clicking the upload button, and once the controller receives the content, it will show the preview screen to the administrator and the content will be saved.
For the sequence diagram of View Analytics report, there are new classes added, which are the Analytics View, Analytics Controller, Analytics Model, and Analytics Data Access. The actor involved in this sequence diagram is administrator. So the administrator will go through in a sequence of view, controller, model, and data access. And in an alternative flow, if the data is found, the system will return, report, and display the data to the administrator. Otherwise, if the data is not found or invalid, the system will return the no message and display no data found to the administrator.
The sequence diagram for the mental health support subsystem is relatively simple. The use case is the student chatting with an AI chatbot. So the student will initiate the chat by sending the chat behavior to the chat window, which is the view. Then the chat window will link to the controller, which will initiate the chatbot. The chatbot class will then generate response to a message class, and then the message will format message to the chat session, which will be saved to be viewed in future sessions.
The deployment diagram of this system consists of three nodes or hardware devices, which are the mobile device, app server, and database server. Within each node, there are software components. So when the users like students and counselors, they will interact through the mobile app. When they do something like attempt a quiz or book a session using the mobile phone, the mobile app will send the HTTPS request to the app server. The app server will process with the controller and model, and then they will send the SQL queries to the database. From there, they can access the data from the database server. So using this system, the three layers, the mobile device, app server, and database server can communicate securely and efficiently.
Now, let us look at the data design for the overall system. We have just showed a part of the entities identified from the overall system. Because listing all of them out will take up a lot of spaces and will lead to a lengthy report. Here we have identified 13, each from a different subsystem. For example, we have admin, analytics report, appointment history, attempt chatbot, and so on. All of these are the classes in the subsystem mentioned before this. The description describes the properties of the entity. Next, we have the data dictionary, which is the attributes beneath each of the classes identified. For example, for the entity of attempt, we have the attribute of attempt ID and attempt result. And then we will also specify the type of data the attribute belongs to. For example, attempt ID is of type string, and its description is that it is a unique identifier for the current attempt in the quiz subsystem. So all of this can be found in the attributes belonging to different classes in different subsystems as shown in the class diagram above. That's all. Thank you.
Next will be the user interface design. We have organized the user interface design based on the four subsystems that we mentioned before. For quiz subsystem, there will be quiz interface, and for counseling subsystem, there will be book appointment interface and interaction with student and update patient notes interface. For administration in subsystem, there will be manage user access interface, publish content interface, and view analytic report interface. And lastly, for mental health support subsystem, there will be chatbot interface. And that's all for interface.